So in this lab, I'm going to be making a scenario of Microsoft Entra B2B, which is basically business to business. So I've talked briefly about this earlier, but just saying again, the B2B scenario is divided into two. There is B2B Connect and there's B2B Collaboration. So it is basically inviting an external identity into your organization, either for collaboration or just inviting them so they have access to your internal resources. So to do that, I have set up a Gmail account that I'm going to be using for this lab. And then I'm starting with users, creating a new user, and in this case, external identity. So I'm going to be setting up the email address. So basically, you fill out all the information. You can create properties like first name, last name, and um, the user type is always going to be guest. You can put job title or something. Let's put company is Melon, and you can put department type. Let's say marketing. You know, more information, and then you can also specify if you want to give assignment off the bat or not. So you go invite and review, and then you click invite. So the user invitation is in progress. I'm guessing it has been sent. So now let's refresh here. And here we can see Ryan invited you to access application within the organization. So let's click on it. And basically, this is what it looks like when you send an invite. So this is the domain name, the organization name, see, and then this is the link to enroll into the organization. So before we go ahead and accept this invitation, let's say as the global admin, I'm not seeing that side of the scenario, but I want to assign some apps so she can, get straight to her work immediately she joins the organization. So I'm just gonna refresh, and here we have our guest user. So you click on it, and you can see this is, the basic information we have um, that we have configured. So you can assign a role. Let's say she's collaborating with the finance department. So let's give her, okay, so she can invite other guests, and she's an insight administrator, help desk administrator, and, knowledge manager, license administrator. I mean, you could give as much as you can, and then we had. So basically, she will have all of those roles. Moment. Yes, now she has all of those roles. So let's say we want to assign an application to her. We don't have an application in the tenant, so there is no application to assign. But we can assign a license to her. So to assign a license, we can do that from the Entra admin portal, from the Microsoft 365 portal. We come to guest users. Let's refresh that. Now logging in. And now we have Jean Laurent. When you click on it, you can see licenses and apps. So you can give a license, scroll down to apps, You can give oh, so these are all of the licenses, and you save that. Save changes, and just like that, she has been allocated the license for Entra ID P1. So yeah, if we don't want her to use some of the resources, like I don't want her to have access to Microsoft Defender. I don't want her to have multi-factor. Then you save it, and just like that. So when you come back into the admin's portal and you refresh, you can see she has this license, and the application still shows us nothing. So let's say you want to add her to a group membership, you click on groups, and these are the groups we have in our tenant. You can add her to the IT group, you select it, and just like that, she's added to a group. So basically, you're configuring all of this even before she accepts the invite. So immediately she accepts the invite, she already has all of this. Um, Also, if you have configured an administrative unit, you can just, add her to the administrative unit, and all the roles, all the permission that this unit has, automatically she becomes a member and she can also use them. So you can also configure custom security attributes. So by configuring custom security attributes, you are assigning more permissions to her. So once you give her that more permissions, you are assigning more attributes to her. So with those attributes, you can be added automatically to some dynamic groups and all of that. So our authentication method, you can configure it, add an authentication method. You can see system preferred. Let's go MFA, email, phone number, and all of that. So let's click on email. Let's put our email address. And then you had it. So she will be able to authenticate with MFA and with that email address. So if you want to reset the password, let's say she has already, she has already accepted and you want to reset the password, you can do that. There's so much that you can do from there. And Azure role assignment, if you want to give a permission to a subscription or something, some resources within the subscription, you can specify that in there. So on the guest side, once they receive the invite, she clicks on accept invite, and she'll be prompted to the sign in page. So a code will be sent to her email address. She goes back into the email inbox, the verification code. She copies that, pastes it, sign in, and you see everything that is requested. And then she accepts. And now she can log in into, now she has to configure multi-factor authenticator. She can use the Microsoft app or use a different authentication device. So on my mobile phone here, I have the Google Authenticator app. So I'll click, I want to use a different authenticator app. So we go next, and now we enter the code. And now the authenticator app was registered successfully. So she comes to the dashboard, and here she can add her own apps. If you've allowed the permission to add apps, she can add a app, she can create a collection, depending on what she wants, and she can just play around now that we have invited her into our directory. So if you want to convert that external user to an internal user, you can simply click here and you convert to an internal user. Now you can see here it says invitation state accepted. You can reset the invitation status. So basically another invite is sent to her and it shows a sign-in, activity. This is a sign-in log. So for now, only one single sign in, and this is the details of the sign in thread, how everything went, where she signed in from, what authentication details she used, everything. See, security default. She did not use the Microsoft one, so it is showing as failure, and all the basic information. We have it here. So once that has been configured, you can manage the external identity however you want. We've talked about this configuration previously, so you just choose whichever option depending on how much freedom you want to allow them, and you go on from there. So also there is another type of collaboration or another type of B2B that we call B2B Direct Connect. That is like a collaboration. It happens when another company or another tenant are also using Microsoft Entra as the identity provider. So you establish trust between both tenants, and then it is more of a direct connect collaboration in that case. So basically, in this section, you can specify the inbound default rules. That is, what access does the external identity from the other domain, what access do they have in your tenant or in your own directory. So when you click on it, you can leave it at the default, you can allow access or block access. You can set the application and also the redemption order. So you can enable Entra ID if it is a federated identity, or you want to turn this off, you can choose, you know, one of the options, two of the options, and also fallback identity providers depending on what the other organization allows. You can set it like that, and this is for B2B collaboration. And then for B2B direct connect, you can also specify the same thing, basically because they also use Entra ID as the identity provider, so they don't have this redemption order settings. And then you can establish trust, that is, you're trusting multi-factor authentication from the other tenant, and you're trusting their own compliant devices, or you're trusting their hybrid joined devices. And also you can select outbound setting. Outbound setting is how your own users, that is the original users in your directory, how they relate, how they interact with an external directory. So you can set all of that. You can for B2B collaboration tenant or B2B direct connect tenant, you can specify, and also you can edit the tenant restriction, what you want their tenant to have and not have. So once you have configured all of that, then you can actually add an organization to your cross tenant setting. So you click on add organization, and here you have the pop-up where you can put the domain name, and you can see I'm adding my second domain. The moment I added the domain name, because it also uses Entra. So in this scenario, it is direct connect, and then you click add, and just like that, you have added a cross-tenant organization. So once you have added the other organization, you can edit or you can configure the access to restrict only this organization. You know, when you make the external collaboration settings, you are configuring it for the entire, organizations. Or when you do this cross-tenant settings, this default settings, you are configuring it for all the organizations that you add. But let's say specifically for one organization, you want to edit the inbound access, you can do that from here, and it will only affect this organization. You can customize and then you do what you want. Yes. And then you just do it like that, and you can also you can do that for the outbound setting and even for the tenant restriction. And if you want to delete, you just simply delete from here. So that is how you do cross-tenant access settings. So next I'm talking about managed identities. Basically, managed identities are identities that you create to help applications access specific resources that usually the app cannot access directly by itself. For example, let's say you're an app developer and you have stored some keys, some secrets in a key vault. The app might not be able to access that directly because that key vault might be using Entra authentication, one of the Entra authentication. So the app itself will not be able to go through the authentication process by itself. So basically, with a managed identity in between, the app uses that managed identity to pass through any authentication and then access the key vault and get the secret or keys that it needs. So I'll be talking about how I'll be doing a demo on how to configure managed identities in Microsoft Entra. So basically, managed identity are a bit like service principal, but the main difference is that service principal are mostly used for multiple tenant environment, while managed identity is specific is best suited to a single environment. Now, for managed identity, there are two types. There is system assigned managed identity. That is the type of managed identity that is created automatically by a resource and is linked permanently to that resource. So it cannot be shared and it cannot be deleted on its own. It can only be deleted when the resource that it is assigned to deletes. So for example, when you create a virtual machine and then a managed identity is created for that virtual machine, or for a function app, you create a managed identity for a function app. So the system deploys the managed identity automatically. You cannot share it between resources, and it is only deleted when the parent resource is deleted. Then the second type is called user assigned managed identity. That is a managed identity that you create on its own. It is created by an administrator or anyone with the right permission, and they are created as a standalone resource. So this type you can delete it by itself. It is not fixed to one single resource and you can share it among multiple resources. So managed identity are really good because they don't need a lot of administrative overhead to do, the day-to-day credential management and all of that. Automatically the system is doing that. So that is the advantage for managed identities. So to create a managed identity, you can just search it on the search bar. And here you see I have no managed identity at the moment. So you click on create, and here you specify what resource group, and you specify a name. So let's say Brian web app, you review it, and then you create. Okay, so there's an information missing. Okay, no space. Underscore. Okay, so Ryan underscore web app, and then we review and we create. So it has completed the validation, and now we create. So it is being deployed. So now that it is fully deployed, we can go to resource, and here we see all the overview about it. And so basically we cannot assign it to a resource here. So basically we go back home, and then we click on what resource we want to assign it to. If it's a virtual machine, you click on your virtual machine. But in this case, I want to assign it to this test app. So you scroll down to identities, and here you can choose system assigned. Once you turn it on, the system is going to create one and then you save. But I want the user assigned, so you click here, and already it is the only one. So you click on it and then you add. And just like that, you have it assigned to the resource. So if you want to remove it, you just highlight it and then you remove. So once that is done, if you want to assign a role to this identity, almost like assigning a role to every other identity, you can just come to Azure Role Assignment, you click on this, and then you specify. So do you want the scope to be for the whole subscription, for the resource group, for the keywords, or for the storage account, or for an SQL? Now I think I have a storage account in my subscription. So yes, we have the test ball, and yeah, let's say we needed to access one of the secrets that we have created. So you can either put it as an owner, a contributor, or a reader. So in this case, we only needed to read, but I'm going to assign a contributor role to it. And then here we can see under contributor that it is assigned a contributor role. So we can change it if we want. We can go back in and change it. Let's say we want to change it to administrator. We come back here, role assignments, contributor, and add assignments. Keyboard admin, certificate user, keyboard contributor. So you just play around with it. I mean, not play around with it, but you can, depending on what your environment